Betrayal? It's not just a broken heart. It's a knockout to your self-worth. You want revenge, to make a scene, to tell everyone? You can do it, but it won't help. It'll only make your pain worse. Only the weak betray, and only the strong can rise after it. Hi, it's Maya, outside the drama. You know what's worse than a cold shower at dawn? Finding out that someone you trusted just gave you a total emotional knockout. Betrayal. That's what we're talking about today. There's never a good moment for it, never a good scenario. You can't really prepare for it. There's shock, there's huge pain, there's chaos in your head. And that feeling like someone pulled the rug out from under you and then hit you over the head with it. So what now? How do you deal with it? I'm not going to tell you that time heals all wounds or everyone makes mistakes. Today we'll talk about what to do so you don't hurt yourself even more, and importantly, how not to get stuck in the victim role for years. I'm also not going to pretend that it's enough to forgive and forget, because betrayal isn't just a broken heart. It's shattered self-worth, trampled trust in people, and a shame so deep that sometimes you can't even look in the mirror. For clarity, let's break it down into 6 points. So let's get started. Point 1, stop. Seriously. Don't do anything in the heat of the moment. Don't text, don't call, don't make a scene, don't search their phone, don't post your pain on stories. I know it's tempting. I know you want to scream to the world how badly you've been hurt, how much of a jerk he, she is, but this is not the time for that kind of action. This is the time for doing nothing. Breathe. Go for a walk. Make yourself some tea. Leave the house if you have to. Give yourself at least 24 hours before you do anything, because what you do in the first shock almost always comes back like a boomerang and bites you hard later. Want to let it out? Call a friend. Scream into a pillow. Go for a run. But don't make a drama for the whole neighborhood. You need to understand that this is just a defense mechanism. In the first shock, your brain looks for an immediate reaction to regain a sense of control. But that's false control. Trust me. What you do under the influence of such strong emotions, you'll definitely regret later. Okay, let's move on. Point 2, don't look for all the blame in yourself. This is a classic. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. Maybe I demanded too much. Maybe I wasn't enough. Insert anything here. Pretty, caring, sexy, understanding, organized. Whatever you think here. Stop. Betrayal is the other person's decision, not yours. You're not responsible for someone else's choices. You can think about what wasn't working in the relationship, but don't take all the weight on yourself. It's not your cross to bear. And no, I don't buy the line, if you were better, he wouldn't have cheated. Nonsense. Betrayal isn't an accident at work. It's a series of decisions someone made because they wanted to, okay? Not because you didn't make him a sandwich or didn't feel like sex on Wednesday. Point 3, don't turn yourself into a detective and don't wallow in the mud. If you already know, don't dig, don't look for more evidence, don't analyze every text, don't stalk Instagram, don't check who liked his photo. That only prolongs the pain and gives you a false sense of control. Instead of looking for someone to blame, start looking for yourself. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Not, what is he, she doing? Don't turn yourself into Sherlock Holmes, because at the end of that road, you'll only find more pain. And if you really have to know everything, ask yourself, why? What will it give you? Do you really want to know every detail? Or do you just want an excuse to torture yourself even more? It's not worth it, so please don't do it. Point 4, don't use sex as a weapon or a reward. Betrayal often doesn't start in bed, but in the head. Lack of conversation, affection, appreciation, flirting, the feeling that you matter. And then someone looks for that somewhere else. And no, That's not an excuse for cheating. Let's be clear. Weak and immature people cheat. Adults talk, and if there's no agreement, they end the relationship. That's how it should be. But back to the point. Don't use sex as a bargaining chip. It doesn't work. What you give out of obligation or in exchange for something always comes back with interest. And I don't get the line from so many women, let him make an effort, maybe he'll get something. That's absolutely primitive. Sex as a reward or punishment is the fastest way to freeze the bedroom. It might work for a while, but then there's only regret and distance left. And this goes for both sides, okay? Today, we won't go deep into the reasons that lead to betrayal, but I plan to make an episode about that for you soon. The problem is huge, so maybe write in the comments if you want me to prepare something like that for you. Point 5. Don't look for revenge, and don't make a drama for the whole world. I know it's tempting to post on Facebook to let everyone know, to make sure she doesn't have it too easy. But that's not revenge. That's self-sabotage. The fewer people know, the easier it will be for you to put yourself back together. Revenge doesn't heal. Revenge doesn't bring relief. Revenge doesn't make you feel better. Revenge only prolongs the pain. And if you really need to let it out, do it in a safe circle. A friend, a therapist, boxing at the gym. Don't make yourself the star of a soap opera, because it's hard to get out of that role later. Point 6, don't close yourself off. Seek support and get out among people. Betrayal hurts, but it's not the end of the world. It's the end of a certain stage, but not the end of you. Don't lock yourself at home. Don't shut yourself off from people. Don't shut yourself off from life. Give yourself time, but don't turn grief into a lifestyle. If you feel you can't cope, go to a therapist. Talk to someone who won't judge you. You have the right to be weak. You have the right to be broken for a while, but you don't have to be a victim for the rest of your life. And don't be afraid of new people, new experiences, new relationships. Betrayal is not a life sentence to loneliness. I once had a situation where after betrayal, for half a year, I couldn't even look at men. Everything annoyed me, everything hurt, everything seemed pointless. Until finally, a friend dragged me to a party where I met someone who had no idea about my story. And you know what? That was the first evening in months when I felt I could still laugh. And that was the beginning of coming back to myself. Now, it's worth mentioning one more important thing. Betrayal isn't just about sex. It often starts with emotional distance, with secrets, with "it's just a friend," with conversations that last too long and usually in secret. Emotional betrayal sometimes hurts more than physical because it hits your sense of being special, your trust, the feeling that we were a team. Don't downplay it. If you feel your partner is pulling away emotionally, don't wait until it's too late. Talk. Don't pretend you don't see the signs. And one more thing, not every betrayal has to mean the end of the relationship. There are couples who, after betrayal, build something new, try to work it out. But that takes work, honesty, time, and willingness from both sides. You can't do it by force. You can't do it alone. If you both want to fight, fight. If not, have the courage to leave. So, to sum up, betrayal hurts, but it doesn't kill. Don't do anything in the heat of the moment. Don't look for all the blame in yourself. Don't turn yourself into a detective. Don't use sex as a weapon. Don't look for revenge. Don't make a drama for the whole world. Don't close yourself off. Seek support and get out among people. Betrayal is not the end of the world. It's the end of a certain story, but not the end of you. You have the right to feel. You have the right to cry. You have the right to be angry. but you also have the right to come back to life when you're ready, okay? Write in the comments how you dealt with betrayal, what helped you, what was the hardest. And if this episode was important to you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This was Outside the Drama. I'm Maya. See you next time.